Hi, this is writing the report for Project 2, and in this short video we're going to just talk about the introduction section. So the first thing that you'll want to do now that you've got all of your data, right? You've got the sheets that have the all the stuff on it, all of your stats. What you're going to need to do is think about what you found, first thing, and that involves the real thinking process here, the real thought aspect, the part where you're going to be doing a lot of critical analysis, and that's a very important part of this. Now, the next thing you're going to do once you've kind of figured out what your major findings were is you're going to have to actually think about doing the report, and that's going to involve what we call the 80-20 rule, right? The 80-20 rule is 80% of all writing is thinking about what you're going to write. The other 20% is actually writing it. It's that way you can avoid wandering around in your writing, and that's a very good thing. Okay, so I've got the walkthrough for Project 2 document here on the screen, as you can see. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through each section. The first section is just going to be the introduction. So in the introduction, first of all, when a side note, you're going to, up at the top of the page, you're going to write your name and the class that you're in, maybe the time we meet. Then, centered, you're going to put your title, and then you're going to start writing. So you don't need to actually use a specific type of header for an introduction. You don't have to label the introduction. In other words, the rest of the sections you will be labeling, but you don't need to actually be labeling the introduction. It's kind of self-evident. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do in the introduction is you're going to need to explain your topic. So you're going to introduce the reader to what you're talking about. And sometimes people like to start off with, say, a story of some sort, maybe a short, either maybe your version of a news story you saw, or something that's in the news in general, or it could be a personal story that happened to you or someone you know. Don't use any names. And that that's what we call a hook, right? You draw them in, because you wouldn't actually do this in a scientific research journal, but this is kind of a little bit of a crossover writing for you. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to define what it is you're talking about. Remember, we talked about in class many times over, and still will continuously. It's important to always define your terms, right? That everyone needs to know. We're symbolic thinkers. Everyone needs to know what you're talking about in very specific ways. So always define your terms. Define it, then explain it. So you can define it by using the book or some other source, and then explain it in your own words, like this is what this means. Then always make sure that you cite everything. Anything that's not your idea, cite it. I'm not going to dock you tons and tons of points for because you don't have it cited properly and that sort of thing. I prefer proper citation, but it's more important that you actually make some kind of an effort to cite it anyway. Otherwise, you end up with running into problems with plagiarism. Also, you're going to explain why this topic is important. So you're also going to have to, in this section, talk about who cares, right? Why does it matter? Well, obviously, you think your topic is important because it's something that you chose. So you have to explain to the reader why you think it's important to study it. And in that, you're going to probably also talk about not only here's why it's important and this is why I did it, but also here's some other people who also did research in this area. Maybe they could be journal articles, which are the best sources because they're primary sources, which means that the person who did them actually did their research. Then sometimes you can use some secondary sources, although they're not quite as good as primary sources. Like your textbook, for example, is a secondary source, which says that because your author is citing a research someone else did. And then you have websites. Websites are kind of a mix because on the one hand you have websites that can be very, very good, like the Census Bureau, census.gov, and some of the places like that that actually do provide primary resources. But then you have things like Bob's blog, right? And Bob's like 12 years old and he thinks he knows everything and he doesn't really know anything. Anybody can say anything on the internet, and they usually do, right? So somebody, and even something like Wikipedia. Wikipedia is getting better over the years, but it's still not a primary source by any means, and it's not accepted by everyone as being a proper source. Really easy way around that. Scroll down to the bottom and find the sources that they cited. If they didn't cite a source, you got a problem right there. If they did, follow that, trace that back to its original source, and then read it and cite it. Simple enough. Okay. So the next thing you're going to do in the introduction, after you say, okay, so you said, here's this thing that I'm studying. Here's why it's important. And not only that, other people did this. Not only am I doing the research on this, but other people did. And then you're going to say, what is it that you're going to do now? So you're saying, what I plan to do is do a survey on this and explain it just in brief detail. And then finally, after you say, and here's what I'm going to do, then you say, and here's what I expect to find. This is your hypothesis, right? So, because normally when we do hypotheses in actual research, we have what we expect to find is guided by the theories that we're using. So if I were to say, if theory A is correct, then I expect to find this. If theory B is correct, then I expect to find this. And so what I'm doing is I'm trying to figure out which one of these two theories best explains whatever I'm studying. For you, you don't have a theory to guide you, so it's really just kind of your opinion. Like, what do you think you're going to find? Do you think that people are going to have this opinion or that opinion? And that's fine for this type of a project. That's perfectly acceptable. Okay, so that is, once you get your hypotheses in there, then that is the end of the introduction section. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about the method section, and that's the next video. Welcome back. We are now, we just got done speaking about the introduction section of your paper. The next section we're going to talk about is the method section. The method section is the place where you're going to figure out how to talk about your survey and your sample. Those are the two aspects of it. Yeah, the first thing is, as far as your survey, is what you're going to be doing is explaining how you developed it. You're going to be talking about that it is an attitudinal survey, right, which means you're measuring people's opinions. You're going to be talking about the fact that you used a 5-point Likert scale, which is just the name of the guy who came up with that scale, that particular scale. You've all seen it as strongly agree to strongly disagree, as you're familiar with it now. You're going to describe the different statements that you did, and why you used them, and what they're intended to measure. And then after you get done talking about your survey, you're going to talk about your sample. You're going to talk about the size of the sample. You're going to talk about just the general demographic makeup, the age range, and kind of how they were dispersed. You're going to also discuss with regard to how why you chose them. So you might have said this is the place where you say, well, I wanted to figure out whether or not males answer differently than females, so I've had 15 males and 15 females. You're going to talk about whether or not they were students, whether or not they were coworkers, friends, family, whatever, and you're going to explain all of that. And so remember, when you explain your sample, you're not talking about individual people. You're not talking about names, right? You're just so you don't give anybody's names, even if you knew who they were. Like, oh, my mom answered this, and right, you're not going to say that stuff. All you're talking about is just the general demographics of it. These are just just surveys. They're no longer people. They were people's opinions, and that's how we still see them, but they're not individual people anymore. Now they're in aggregate. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Okay, so that is the method section. That is just your talking about your survey and your sample. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about your results section in the next video. All right, so in this next section, this is going to be the results section, and the results section is going to be where you're going to explain your data. Now, when we say your data, what we mean is your statistics, your in this case, your percentages. This is where you're going to explain your major findings, and what a lot of students like to do here is they like to use this section to talk about all of their statements rather than just some of them. They have like a paragraph basically for each one, which is fine if that's what you want to do. That usually ends up eating up a couple of pages. At the very least, if you do it that way, then I at least know that you're doing some analysis, because you're going to start off each one. Say if you decide you're going to talk about, you talk about your first statement. First thing you're going to do is talk about what that statement was. You're going to explain it. Then you're going to, you might want to talk about like what you were trying to measure in that one. And then you might want to, then of course you're going to give your data. So talk about your percentages, how many people answered strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. And then you're going to tell me, and this is important, you're going to tell me what that means. Why is that significant? What did you find? A lot of students, this is where a lot of students make a terrible mistake by just simply putting their statistics in there and then stopping talking about it and go on to the next one. Do not make this mistake. And the reason why is because you'll lose a lot of points, but also because this is the point of why you're doing this, is so that it's to do the thinking part of this. This is why I don't mind making videos walking you through how to do this stuff, because the hard part is actually thinking about what you found. Why is it significant? Why is it important? So it's sort of the answer to the question, why should I care? So what? So 15 people said strongly agree. What does that even mean? So you're going to interpret that, and you're going to talk about maybe what that does mean. And you do that for each one of them. So that's about a paragraph for each one of your statements. And when it comes right down to it, that ends up being about 2 pages of text pretty easily. So that's one way to do that. And so, one, make sure that you explain, what it is that you're first talking about. So talk about what the statement was and why. Then talk about your statistics, and then make sure that you interpret them for me, so that because I know how to interpret them. I went to college for years and studied this stuff. I want to know whether or not you know how to interpret them, whether or not you can use the reasoning that we've learned in class to be able to figure that out. Okay, the next section we're going to talk about is finally your discussion and conclusion section. Okay, in this last section, the discussion conclusion section, this is where you're going to wrap it all up. You're going to talk about what you found. You're going to talk about your rediscuss your topic, your what you found. What does it mean if you found support or failed to find support for your hypotheses? Now, so you start off. Obviously, you put a heading of discussion conclusion up there, and then you're going to begin by recapping what you did as an overview. So you're going to kind of talk about what it is you just did. The old saying in writing is, First, you tell them what you're going to do. You do it. You tell them what you did, and then you end. It's kind of true in a way. It's a little simple, but it's very true. Okay, so you're going to recap what you did, talk about it as an overview. Then you're going to talk about what were your overall findings, the big takeaways. This is what was the kind of the purpose of this? Did you discover anything new? And in that, you also can talk about whether or not you found support for your hypotheses. Did you find support for your hypotheses? Did you fail to find support for your hypotheses? Either one is significant. So that's something that you want to make sure that you talk about. It doesn't mean that you failed if you didn't find support for your hypothesis or hypotheses, because in science, findings are findings. They're relevant regardless. Also, you may talk about in this section about what are the weaknesses of your methodology. For example, did you were there questions that you realized afterward, I should have asked that question. That would have been really great if I would have asked that one question I forgot to, or I didn't think about. That's pretty normal. That's the way it works, especially at this level when you're trying to do this. We have certain methods that we do to make sure that we try to answer or ask everything that we possibly can, but that you're not going to be saying that you failed or you screwed up by doing this. Actually, for me, that's kind of like brownie points. The fact that you can recognize something that you learned from this process, that you said, okay, hey, I realized, anything that you can realize that, hey, I could have done this differently, and it would have been better. So the question of how could you have made it better, now that you have the benefit of hindsight, is a good thing to put in here. Also, you're going to talk about then how are these findings related to larger society? Like, this is where you talk about the big picture. So what? Who cares? Why does it matter to the reader? All this stuff that you did. You're going to be talking about how does this affect larger society, at least not how your specific survey did, but the findings that you took away from this. How does that impact maybe larger society, and what might it mean? And then finally, what are your predictions for the future of the topic? How do you think that people's opinions are going to change over time? Do you think that people are going to continue to think this way or not? Do you think that people's opinions will change? So if it's something like same-sex marriage or something, do you think that people will change in one direction or another? This is sort of your opinion at this point, because you're just kind of predicting what you think based sort of on what you found, what you think might happen sometime in the future. Okay, so that is the last of the sections. Now, what we're going to do after this is I'm going to talk to you about the different kind of the nuts and bolts of the paper in the last video of this. Okay, so after you've gotten your paper written, I know you're kind of burned out at this point, but hang on just a little longer. We're almost done. So you've got the text written, and then you're going to need to put right after the end of the discussion. So on the next page is going to be your reference page or your works cited page. And that's where you're going to put your sources. You remember you need a minimum of 2, but you could have more if you want. It's up to you. Then the next page is going to be a clean copy of your questionnaire, or next couple of pages if you have them just on the front. And that's fine, so make sure to put those in there. When I say clean copy, I mean you just print off a clean copy and stick it in there right after the reference page. After that, you're going to have appendices. Now, appendices are anything else that you want to add to the paper that you've made reference to, maybe in the body of the paper. So this is why I say don't I said in class, you don't put graphs, pie charts, tables, that kind of thing in the body of the text, because I already know how that works, right? The old game is put a whole bunch of pie charts in there, and then it looks like the paper is really longer than it actually is. Well, if you want to put pie charts or tables or something in there, that's fine. I have no problem with it. It's kind of maybe a good way to show your your skills and with Microsoft Word or whatever. But those are all go as appendices. What you can do in your paper is say, see Appendix A, see Appendix B, and then I can turn to those and look at that table or chart or whatever. But those are not to be in the body of the paper itself. Then what you're going to do after you get that, your paper is complete, as such as it is. And you're going to need to print it off and make sure that your name's on it and all of that, and then turn it in class. Remember, a paper copy in class, not an attachment to an email because you decided you didn't want to show up that day. I've told you guys well in advance, if you can't turn it in on that day, turn it in early. Then you don't have to worry about it. But that's not why the game is played anyway. Okay, so the other thing, though, that we'll talk about is the idea of the report as far as what should it have in it. So just formatting issues. And we'll just kind of end with this. So formatting issues are going to be things like, one, you want to make sure that that it's printed on white paper with black ink. Otherwise, I get some weird stuff. The neon yellow paper with hot pink lettering or something weird crap like that. Then you get the issue of people wanting to add a cover page or those cool binders. Slick binders, that are all really colorful and stuff. I don't care about that. I'm a scientist. What I care about is the content of your paper. I had somebody one time hand in a paper that had looked like they said a coffee mug on it with a coffee stain, round coffee stain on it, but their paper was awesome. It didn't affect their grade at all, right? I don't care if it's pretty. What I care about is the content. So do not, hear me, do not give me those binders. Do not put it in a binder, staple it together as a pack of papers. Do not do that. Side note, I don't want the completed surveys either. Do not put those in there with that. There's way too many. 30 completed questionnaires for each paper means that I'll have a stack of paper like this for each class, and I have a bad back. I don't want those. Just the paper itself. So no binders, no folders, none of that. I don't like them. As far as you'll need 1-inch margins, which is standard for Microsoft Word anyway. It's the default setting. No messing with the margins. You don't need to increase them and make it look like a newspaper article because it makes your paper look longer. I don't want any of that. So make sure you double space it. Right, so double spaced is good. It makes it seem longer than it is. That's okay because I use it. I use that space. It's going to be in Arial or Times New Roman font. Arial's good. I prefer Arial, but Times New Roman is okay too. I actually if you notice here on the paper, the handout, the walkthrough, I've actually put the font in the font so you can kind of see what it looks like. I prefer Arial. That's the standard for a lot of writing in science. And then make sure it's 10 to 12 point. And you don't need to it doesn't need to be 18 or 20 point font. No bigger than 12 point font, no smaller than 10 point font. Then the length, obviously, of the text itself, which we've talked about, is going to be 4 pages or more of text. There's no limit. You're not limited to 4 pages, but no less than 4 pages. And the reason why is because it really does take about 4 pages to be able to put everything in here that you need. And I've just learned that over the years. So students kept asking me, how long does it need to be? And so I finally just, I used to say, well, as long as it takes, thinking they're going to write 7 or 8 pages or something, or at least 4 pages, right? And they would give me like a page and a half of text and said, well, I said everything needed to be said. No, you didn't actually, and that's why you got a very bad grade. So This the other thing that I wanted to mention real quickly before I end is just go back through and proofread. Proofread. You know, it's this really cool thing. You should look into it. Google it. It's awesome. What you want to do is you want to go back through your paper on your computer, and you want to look for errors. Things like red squiggly lines underneath words, because that means you misspelled it and then left it. Those kinds of things are kind of make you look sloppy, make you look like you don't care. So also look for, formatting things like that. Just, clean it up, make sure it looks nice, because it's not that you're going to specifically lose points for that, but honestly, when I'm reading it, I can't help but if somebody is, in this day and age, when the computer tells you when something is spelled wrong, tells you when something is wrong, and you still don't even change it, it really makes you look like you're half-assing it. So we don't want that. I don't want that. You don't want that. I want to be able to give you a great grade. You want a great grade. We're good, right? So just go back through and make sure that you did it right. I know you're tired. I know you've been doing this stupid crap for my class for a while now, but take a little bit longer and go back through and make sure that you've got all of your ducks in a row, and then you turn it in. Okay. All right. So this has been a long journey getting here, but we'll talk about. I'll answer whatever questions you have in class if you have any. But hopefully these videos helped you, and helped you, more importantly, to give me a better paper and get a better grade. All right, so I'm out.